What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, with a look at what's new with the new 12-inch MacBook. So this is the second update for the MacBook. For the most part, this is a spec upgrade, but there are more significant updates to this computer than there are to the MacBook Pros. Specifically, there is a new keyboard mechanism built in here. So this gets the second generation butterfly switches that the MacBook Pro also has. So I think that really addresses one of the complaints of the previous model. But of course, we also get Kaby Lake processors, new graphics, and for the first time, we get a 16 gig RAM upgrade option. Pricing really hasn't changed here. It still starts off at $1299. That gets you a Kaby Lake Core M3, and that's the version we're going to take a look at today. But you can also upgrade to a Core i5 or a Core i7 in this fanless computer, which I think is pretty interesting. And you can also upgrade the RAM to 16 gigs, and you're stuck to 512 gigs of SSD storage, so that's the maximum you can go. When it comes to the accessories, all pretty much the same as the last model. Of course, we get a USB-C cable for recharging the MacBook. Again, very nicely tied up here. In terms of the paperwork, we get something that's kind of unique to the MacBook lineup, and that is color matching Apple stickers. So in this case, I get space gray, but of course, if you get gold, rose gold, or even silver, you'll see matching stickers there as well. And of course, we get a quick start guide and warranty info. Also included is the 29-watt USB-C power adapter. So again, the cable can be removed. Unfortunately, the extension cable is no longer included with MacBooks. Now, like most spec upgrades, you're not going to see a whole lot visually different between this and the previous model. The only thing that really tells you that this is a new model is the keyboard iconography. So if you look at the Control and Option key, you'll see some new icons there. Of course, this is a computer that didn't really need a design update. It looks fantastic. I like this wedge shape. It's extremely compact, weighs only 2 pounds, so it's very lightweight, and I think it's just the right size for most people. Of course, that means they did not change the port situation. There's still just one USB Type-C connector on the left side with a headphone jack and a dual microphone on the right side. Although this port did not pick up Thunderbolt 3, thanks to the new Intel HD Graphics 615 GPU, this is able to output to higher resolution monitors. So it can now output to 4096 by 2304. That's up from the 3804 by 2160 that this computer was maxed out to last year. Another improvement you can't see is Bluetooth 4.2, replacing 4.0 from the previous models. Also carried over is the 12-inch IPS display with a resolution of 2304 by 1440. That's good for 226 pixels per inch. It's a very bright and vivid display, although it did not pick up the DC-IP3 spectrum of the MacBook Pros. For the most part, the displays look the same, but there seems to be a slight difference to the anti-reflective coating on the new MacBook. They didn't mention this change here, but it does look like it's a bit more effective on the new MacBook. It doesn't look as green, and there's a little less reflection here. So I think this is the same coating they use on the newer MacBook Pros. Perhaps the only thing that really needed an improvement that did not happen is the 480p FaceTime camera. So we're still stuck with that. Battery capacity is still 41.4 watt hours, and that should get you about 10 hours of wireless web browsing, very similar to the MacBook Pro. Besides the new key icons, for the most part, the keyboard and the large Force Touch glass trackpad look the same, and they all work mostly the same, but obviously there's a big difference in terms of how the keyboard feels and sounds. Now, this sounds and feels very much like a MacBook Pro keyboard, so if you don't like that keyboard, you're still not going to like this. Now, personally, I love it. It's a very fast and tactile keyboard, and I think it's a huge improvement over the previous MacBook, which was a lot more vague and quite flat compared to what you get with this. Now, to my eyes, it really doesn't look like the height of the keys have changed at all. It still looks identical to the previous model. It's just the way they feel and click. So let's go ahead and take a listen to the keyboard in action to see how they differ. Also, just above the keyboard is one of the best sounding speaker systems I've ever heard on a laptop, especially at this size. It's really impressive. So let's go and take a listen. What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, and Apple has updated all of its MacBook Pros with Kaby Lake CPUs and new graphics. Once again, the best way to illustrate what's new and improved about a spec upgrade is to compare it to the like model from the previous release, and that's what I'm going to do here. So I have the baseline configuration from 2016. We're going to compare it to the one for 2017. So obviously the big news is Kaby Lake, and it's also a bit faster. We go from 1.1 gigahertz to 1.2 gigahertz. In terms of our Geekbench scores, pretty significant gains over the previous model. I'm actually surprised by how significant this is. So this is still not going to compete with the MacBook Pro, but it's definitely a big improvement over what we had previously. In terms of graphics, all MacBooks get the HD graphics 615 GPU, replacing the 515 from last year. Now the gains here are not that significant, so we're seeing 25 frames per second as opposed to 23 frames per second, but we are seeing really significant CPU gains. Although the SSD sizes haven't changed, they've sped up quite a bit, so we're seeing huge gains here in terms of the read and write speed. Now this becomes evident especially when launching apps. There's much less lag here on the new MacBook versus the old one, so that does make a performance difference. So in the end, I've always really liked the 12-inch MacBook. It's far more powerful than I think most people expect from it, and it does everything I need to do day to day besides video editing, which I'm going to use my main machines for anyway. So for day-to-day laptop use, such as reading emails, social media, web browsing, this is more than capable, even in its baseline configuration. Now, the main reason I stopped using the MacBook was because of the better keyboard on the MacBook Pro, which is very important when you spend a lot of time typing. So now that that keyboard has made it to the MacBook, I definitely see myself using this more than the MacBook Pro. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this look at the updated MacBook. I think it's worth your look. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up to let me know, and I'll see you again in my next video.